Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Robinson, Superintendent of Coffeeville School District. We currently have 21 people on the call. Thank you so much for joining us for this public hearing. I do apologize for the delay. I was unable to hear the speakers and we were experiencing technical difficulty. Thank you to Chris for readily getting that fixed for us. And we are now ready to begin our presentation of our 2020-2021 budget. Before I really get into the meat and potatoes of this presentation, I would like to thank the Board of Trustees for their continuous support over the years, and specifically to this year. As everyone can attest to, it's been a very challenging year. And instead of us saying we have survived the year, I think that we were able to pull together and thrive through the year during this unprecedented time in the wake of COVID-19. I am also honored to announce that our board attorney, Jim Keith, is here with us, who has been readily available to us through over the years. He is here with us. And we also have Dana Fleming here with us, who works with the Excellence Group. And she is also a very, very experienced business manager with decades of experience, in addition to now serving as a state auditor. So it has definitely been more than I can say to have her here with us, leading us through these challenging times. I'd also like to announce that we have Sandra Edgett here with us, who currently serves as the Coffeeville School District Business Manager. This hearing is traditionally by law required, and it is officially, after this hearing, going to be placed into the office of the business manager, where is traditionally this public hearing is to be done by every district's business manager. But as always, we pull together to get through the times that we need to for the benefits of our students, staff, and our community. So with that said, we would like to welcome Sandra to the team, and I ask that you bear with us as we have a lot of pertinent information to share. Prior to us getting right into the presentation, I would like to say that the budget hearing rules consist of we will have a questions and comment and answering session at the very end. You may only speak when recognized by myself to give you the floor to speak. We also ask that because of COVID-19, we are teleconference and virtually here today. So if you are not the speaker at that time, please mute your phone so that we will not have, or we can minimize any type of interference, because this is a very important hearing for our public to be very well informed on how we are going to provide our students a quality education. And so at the very end, we will announce the question and answer session. And I am thankful to have Jim Keith here, who will be on hand to take questions, as will Dana will serve as our representative to take questions, being that she did a great job redoing our numbers and regenerating the budget to reflect the projection that we are going to present today. And with that said, let's begin. Okay, Chris, we can go ahead and move to the next slide. Thank you. Good job. All right, Coffeeville School District serves grades pre-K through 12, and it's a district which, as most of you know, consists of two schools. Here we have Coffeeville High School, which is 8 through 12, Coffeeville Elementary School, pre-K through 7, and these two entities make up pre-K through 12. If you notice here, I did not include the numbers here as we are working to get an accurate count, being that we are fully online with enrollment. And please be a vehicle for us to share with those who are unable to participate on this call tonight, as it will be available via Facebook, our website, and on YouTube. But we are working to assist all of our community and our parents with online registration. If you are having any issues with that, please contact the counselor, Ashley Taylor Pope, and the principal at the elementary school, Jennifer Gaston, will also be invaluable to you, as they will walk you through how to properly and successfully enroll for the 2021 school year, as we will not provide hard copies for anyone except those students who are new to our district. Again, everyone, all returning students must enroll online. We will only provide hard copies to those new students to our district. And we appreciate your understanding. We also want to talk about a public hearing. If we can, please mute our phones. That would really help us move through this as efficiently, thoroughly, and successfully as we can. Thank you so much, as we are now up to 25 people on the call. This public hearing is required by law through the Mississippi Code 37619. This year has really been challenging, as we stated. We have worked untimely with the Excellence Group to try and gain stability, even with the challenge of COVID-19. So everyone is pretty much abreast of how we're trying to successfully move through this pandemic. We wanted to present a 5-year trend. However, we were unable to find documentation of a public hearing being held prior to June 2017. So because of that, Dana, who is here with us, we just kind of focused on 2018-19, 19-20, and 2020-21 school year. So it has been an extremely difficult budgeting year. We're continuing to work through our strategic plan, which is comprised of departmentalizing the elementary school another year. I do recall us going to the board asking if we could do that. Previous teachers, Ms. Gaston, who is currently the principal, but I'm sure she can recall as one teacher having to teach more than one content area. For example, a 3rd grade teacher teaching 3rd grade and 4th grade, a teacher teaching 5th and 6th, and a teacher teaching 6th and 7. You know, it is difficult just to focus in on one content area. So when you are assigned more than one, that gets extremely difficult, and it lessens the ability for the teacher to successfully meet all the needs of the students. So we did departmentalize those grades. And of course, that did cost us a little bit more funding, but we felt it was worth it to ensure that our students receive a quality education. Through our strategic plan, we also plan to purchase technology for our students. If you were able to participate on our special call meeting here just recently, July 24th, I think that was a maybe Friday evening, we stated that we are just about at a one-to-one initiative. So we have put many of the taxpayers' dollars into purchasing technology, which was very limited prior to January 2017. We are continuously focusing on professional development for our teaching staff and our classified staff. If you are keeping up with Governor Tate Reeves and the state superintendent, Dr. Wright, it is imperative that we commit to providing professional development training for our staff. As you know, back in March, maybe the 16th, we had to transition into remote learning, which I do commend the community, the teaching staff, our entire district for quickly making that transition And it's been, it's been an experience for us. So as the time has gone by in March, April, May, and June, and now July, I want to commend our administrative staff for ensuring that teachers have participated in professional development training to ensure that we are prepared for the upcoming school year. With that said, I do think that our staff will be participating on tomorrow on another training to further enhance our capability to utilize these tools for virtual learning for our students and for our parents. At some point, we are going to establish training for the parents who are not as savvy with this virtual learning as they would like to be. We are committed to providing training for them as well. We also have committed within this budget to reducing our contractual services by only hiring one entity each year. Sometimes we may venture on over to two, but we try to just stick with one. Last year, our contractual service was within our instructional process, and the consultant firm that we chose, we did get our bang for our buck because we are happy to celebrate that our high school is a historical B, which it has never been before. Our elementary school currently making strong strides to pull up to another accountability level. And we're currently a successful district. We are a strong C district, and I think that had a lot to do with the consultant company that we worked with. This year, we have gladly brought on the Excellence Group, and they are the consultant that we will work with to help us navigate through this unprecedented time to ensure that we are good servants of the taxpayers' fund. This is a time for us to start over, and it is a drastic change from usually contracting out to 4 or 5 consultant groups in just 1 year. Okay, Chris, if you can move back one slide where the bar graph was, please. I'm sorry. Also, we mentioned yes, thank you. We mentioned about curriculum, which is ever so important. And I know many parents are concerned now that we are beginning the 9 weeks with virtual learning. But I do really feel very strongly that our staff will be able to meet the needs of our students this first 9 weeks. There is a high probability that by October we will be moving into the hybrid instruction where our students will come on alternate days of instruction. It will be a little blended of virtual as well as face-to-face. That is not confirmed. We will definitely look at the numbers of confirmed cases. If you look today, I think it was well over 1,500 for today. And these are very alarming numbers. So we have to pay close attention to that because we have to keep safety of everyone in the forefront. Also, we are happy to announce that 83% of our staff returned from last year. We are working to make sure that all positions that we bring into the fold, that each individual employee will need to work to full capacity to safeguard the health and welfare of our students and staff in wake of this COVID-19. Now, just to talk from the next slide, some of our financial goals. I just want to spend just a moment on this, as again, I can't plug enough that we do have the Excellence Group here with us. Dana, who is a business manager for many decades, as well as a state auditor who has been leading Mrs. Edgett and I through these ranks of trying to establish stability within our budget. We are going to demonstrate transparency here as to where we stand. And not only in Coffeeville, I do think that all districts are going to struggle through this year to the best of our ability. These are projections as we have not received our allocation of MAEP. If you are keeping up with what's going on within our state, you probably already know that. So many of these figures are a projection. And I do think that Dana has done an outstanding job, and she will be available to respond to any additional questions you may have at the end of this presentation. So I do thank them for coming online for us in the 11th hour. We had anticipated having this hearing on June 10th, but with just like the pandemic we're going through right now, you have to learn to move and shift when you have to, just to make sure the ending goal is still met. Dana and I have held many meetings together to determine what kind of changes would yield the best outcomes for us. Some of our challenges, we recently had a compliance audit from the Office of the State Auditor, which lasted 4 months. As we did have, we had a great many of citations, being that the entire central office collapsed in December of 2018. I think that those citations were minimal, and we were thankful that they are citations that we are able to easily turn around and justify and move forward in success. And so after speaking with Dana, we looked at how we can strengthen internal controls within our office. These were some of the same indications from the Office of the State Auditor. And that means with internal controls, you cannot just have one person with total autonomy of your financial management or your financial planning, which is what was happening with us in the past. So we are working to strengthen internal controls within the central office, which honestly, we have really not had strong internal control due to the small number of staffing that we have. When I spoke to the CPA Cunningham, who does our annual audit, he did state that this is a common problem for many small districts where employees have to carry many different positions, as we have many employees right now carrying dual jobs because of our lack of manpower that some of our larger districts may have. As I move down this slide, for those of you who may not know, the budgeting process includes many funds, and as you can see right there on the slide, it is comprised of how we get revenue, what our expenditures are, our debt service funds, just to name a few, not to just read directly from the slides for you. And as I go down at the slide before the one that is showing here, I do want to talk just a minute about fiscal management, because a lot of times smaller districts run into issues that our larger districts do not always run into. And I want to talk a little bit about expenditures, and those are bills that we run into, things that we are required to pay, and that has to go up against the amount of revenue that we bring in. So once we get farther into this presentation, you will see, as with many other districts, we'll experience this same issue of our expenditures outweighing the revenue, which, if you have been keeping up with this COVID-19 and how the state is looking to cut every district within the state anywhere from 0 to 10%, we had already anticipated taking a big hit. And if you were with us last year, we kind of went through the same things, but what we pull together and do, we try to cut expenses anywhere that we can. We have gone decades without a fund balance. We are trying very hard to close the gap on that. Dana and I have met, and this budget is going to be very tight, but we do think it is a budget that we will be able to successfully move through by making decisions and cutting where we can. Due to the state budget cuts, COVID-19, and pre-existing deficits, we're really going to have to be very, very good servants of the taxpayer dollar. And it is just an added plus for us that we do have the excellence group here with us to give us this fresh start and to ensure that every decision made is going to greatly enhance the instruction of our students, the success of our students, and our district. So going on to the next slide, I also want to briefly talk about the 4% admin cap, which was also a citation we received from the Office of the State Auditor. I want to briefly talk about that just a second. Coffeeville School District is not the only district who experiences this citation. Oftentimes it is found within smaller districts or districts that have a budget of $20 million or less. It's kind of hard to stay beneath that 4% admin cap when you have to have administrators within these positions to ensure that our district is successful and our students are receiving a quality education. So on the next board meeting, that will be inclusive of the board packet so that they can see there are some of our neighboring districts right here next to us that are experiencing this same issue of going above that cap. We are not a great amount above it, but we are above that 4% cap. And what we do when the state auditor comes in, if they come in again, which we know they will, because we've worked to clean up some of the citations that we received previously, we will be able to provide them a justification as to why the employees that we have in administrative positions are where they are, and they do a great job. And I'm happy to add that. So just to talk briefly about the budget at a glance, the operating fund expenditures total $3.97 million. The Coffeeville School District Mississippi Adequate Education Program, which is our MAEP, which we have not received our allocation for that as of yet. If you've been keeping up with Governor Tate Reeves and the MDE State Department. So what we've done, Dana has given us a budgeted estimate anticipating that it will be underfunded by almost $250,000, $240,084. But if you keep up with education, as I know you do, the MAEP has not been fully funded in quite some time. And so just looking at salaries and benefits, you have to know with any budget, whether it's like the $6 million budget that we have, if it's these $20 million, $80 million budgets that other districts have, your greatest expense will be your personnel. Personnel is always going to be between 60 and 70% of your budget. I know a few years back, it was once 80% of our budget. So I'm happy to announce that we have decreased that. And I think a little later in the slides, we were able to get our personnel down to 69.7% of our budget, which is a pretty good statistic for personnel. I also want to briefly, as I'm going over to the next slide, I will return to talk about the millage rate. I want to give a little bit more detail about that to ensure that everyone understands about a 4% increase in millage, because there has also been a change of what I had announced earlier. And I want to be very transparent and be very detailed with our community as to how we are going to go forward and how we are working to close this gap that is among us as a state and a nation. As I stated earlier, the MAEP allocations are still unknown as they have not been received at this time. We are readily awaiting to get that allocation, as is every other district in the state. So because of that, we have just pulled together projections for you. And you can see that we have made comparisons from FY 18-19, 19-20, and 2021. Our expenditures at this time do outweigh our revenue. We were in the same position the past 2 years, but as we have done in the past, we are going to try to make reductions anywhere that we can, but we will make sure that these reductions do not compromise the safety nor quality education for our students. Everyone is pretty much in that same situation right now to try and make reductions wherever you can, be it if it is in supplies, if it is in equipment, if it is in personnel. We try not to reduce personnel if at all possible, but some of the things that we do when someone retires or they leave a position, if at all possible, to try to save and close that gap. Many districts, and we've done this year as well, we choose to not fill that position, in which I will go into deeper detail about that as we get farther along in this presentation. Now, looking at the next slide, you will see where it does say our personnel right now makes up 69.43%, which puts us between that 60 and 70% of your budget. That is the largest portion of where the money goes. We have to have the personnel in order to provide a rigorous curriculum and quality education for our students. Of course, we have to spend monies on other instructional and non-instructional, like maintenance, transportation, utilities. We have to have the lights on. We have to get the kids back and forth to school. And when there's a leak or anything such as that, we have to readily be able to respond to ensure the safety and welfare of our students and staff. Each year, we try to build this budget based upon the needs, and we now have personnel in place that we feel would be good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. So we feel very confident about that. Going on to the next slide, we want to talk about how we can generate a little bit more revenue. Here is a great opportunity for us to all be vocal vehicles to get this information out to our community. That one way for us to strengthen revenue coming into our district is the importance of enrollment. And our ADA report, that's generated, and that's how we get revenue. At the beginning of the year, the months August and September, they serve as your first month. Then you go into October, that serves as your second month, and then November the third. And those are your big months. Those are the months that really make up how you're going to get your funding. So we need to make sure that we communicate to the community and to our students that it's so very important that they come to school every day and be at school 63% of the day, because that is a huge impact on our funding. And also, I can plug here, this is the year of our census, and they have extended the due date for census. So parents, community, everyone, if you have not completed that 2020 census, it's going to be ever so important that you get out and complete that, because it directly affects our funding. And as you know, this will not come around again for 10 years. So 10 minutes, about 10 questions, that affects 10 years of your child's education. So we really need you to ensure that you have completed this census. That will also help us generate funding, because that's not going to change for the next 10 years. So going on to the next slide, I want to bounce back to the millage. As with everything that you're kind of hearing right now, you're hearing, oh, these are fluid plans because they are changing at all times. Our budget was kind of forced into that position as well. We previously generated some numbers for a budget back in June, and when we brought on the excellence group toward the ending of June, Dana, who is here on the line with us, basically had to rework those numbers for us so that we can get more concise representation. And at that time, I did announce that we did not need to ask for a 4% increase of our community. That was based on the recommendation of our former business manager and the former consultant that we worked with. But since that time, working with Dana, we have realized that we are going to have to, again, ask for a 4% increase within our community. This is also a recommendation that is given to superintendents to each year ask for the 4% increase. But oftentimes we do not ask for a 7%, because that would just put us in too high of a bracket, so that we won't get into panic, I wanted to just kind of explain just a tad bit about this 4% increase. And when we get to the question and answer, Dana can correct some of these numbers if need be. So I want to just kind of give you an example how that is calculated, I think, as I go back to some of my classes coming through the ranks. Let's just say that your property is worth $100,000. That millage is calculated by 10% of your property. So you know that 10% of that 100,000 would be 10,000. And currently right now, our millage, which you'll see on another slide, is I think 39.82. So once you configure that 10% of the 100,000 and you equate that with our millage being 39.82, and I think 50 is a cap. I'm not absolutely sure. Dana can speak to that when we get to the question and answer. That puts each property owner out of about $398.20. And so we appreciate the community being understanding about that. That is also what we have plugged into the budget as a way to close this financial gap that everyone is currently experiencing. And so those who are unable to be on the call with us tonight, and we are now up to 29, hopefully that will continue to grow. This presentation will be available via Facebook. It will also go to our website, and it will also be featured on YouTube. And as Chris, our tech specialist, announced prior to us beginning, this is recorded, and so this will be a way that we can make sure that everyone has an opportunity to go over and look over this proposed budget, as it will not be up for approval tonight, but we want to thoroughly go over it and provide as much transparency as we can. One of the ways, as you see here, this is a very good depiction of our 2021 budget. And so as I stated before, you can see that our administrative salaries is at like 7%. The cap is like 4%. That's not a huge discrepancy, but it is over the 4%. And it's just hard for us as a smaller district to be underneath that 4%, but that is somewhere I can assure you we will continue to try to work to get there. But that is something that we often provide justification for, and Dana is also here to provide further information about that if you have any questions. And in an attempt to further close the spending gap, what we had to do, as I spoke about earlier, we did have to not fill some of the positions that were vacated by either retirement or a change in career. So some of them were the counselor at the elementary school we did not fill. However, in the regular meeting, which will be immediately following this meeting, we did manage to secure a grant that is $250,000, and at no cost to the district, it will provide two mental health professionals that will address all of the mental health issues that may come into play, because COVID-19 is very stressful. It is for students and for staff. And we will also address all of the social and emotional well-beings of our students and our staff. And also within that grant, at no cost to the district, we will place a academic administrator there as well, which will help us when we're able to transition into hybrid and then into traditional. That will help us be able to target where each individual students are functioning once we are trying to re-enter back into the traditional setting. We did not fill the mechanic at this point. We are beginning our year virtual, but because we had to do a shift so late into the year, we were not going to furlough bus drivers. So bus drivers will still have their routes. We will make sure that they are delivering lunches for our kids. We may have to start out a little early, so we're asking parents to bear with us, as this is a difficult time for everyone. So we pride ourselves on trying to be fair and to make sure that everyone is within the model of trying to be successful as we can through these challenging times. We did not replace the transportation director. A gifted teacher we did not replace because the state was not paying for two gifted teachers, being that the state will only pay for a teacher if there are 40 students. And at this time, Coffeeville does not have 40 gifted students, but we are working to increase the number that we have now. I think right now we have somewhere between 13, 15, or 18 students. Therefore, all the years that we have had the two gifted teachers, the state did not pay for them both. So that is an area that Dana and I looked at, and we were able to come to a consensus that we did not need to replace the gifted teacher. There's an administrative assistant that we will not replace in central office. Dana and I discussed possibly bringing on a part-time payroll person to try to strengthen our internal controls so that we will not fall back into that trench of one person having total autonomy of the fiscal management and the fiscal planning. And there are some assistant teachers that we have opted not to fill in hopes of closing as much as this gap as we possibly can. So I do appreciate you listening so attentively up to this point, and we're almost at the point to where Dana will address any of the fiscal questions that you may have. But I did want to briefly talk about all of the various funding. If you would move on to the next slide, there are so many various fundings within a school district. I'm happy to say that we do have a business manager coming on with not only an accounting degree that the State Department requires, she also holds a master's degree in accounting, and still, even though holding other jobs, this a district budget is so different. You have so many various funds that you have to become acclimated to. You have to know where you can and cannot spend monies from. You have to know the difference between if you're going to purchase equipment such as technology, or if you're going to purchase supplies such as a consumable or a textbook or a workbook. You have to be spot on with which funding that comes out of. And so during the recent compliance audit that we had with the State Department, the Office of the State Auditor, that was another target area for us. We were not spot on with what funding we were spending out of. So the Excellence Group and Dana, they have been so patient with us and taking us through trainings to make sure that we are spot on with, you have to make sure when these purchase orders come through that we are spending these fundings out of the correct entity, because that can get us into a lot of trouble. Also, as I am coming to the end of this presentation, I just want to briefly talk about some of the child nutrition. I know in the past, there have been concerns about the meals that the students are receiving. Here recently, since Ms. Smith has come on board, we have been providing so many more hot meals. The state requires that a student receives a hot meal during the instructional day. But in wake of COVID-19, we are being forced into grab and go. I have met with Mrs. Smith. We are redoing the menus. She did do a great menu over the months of the upcoming year, not thinking that we were going to begin virtually. So of course we have to make a shift. We have to make some changes that are conducive to the grab and go. And so you see there that her budget is in excess of $420,000 annually through a combination of local and federal funds. So we are working to improve these nutritional meals for our students as they do align and they do impact achievement and performance of our students. So again, I want to plug here, we do plan to still have routes for our bus drivers. Our plan is to put lunches on these buses, have assistants as monitors, and to make sure at this time we're not certain if we're going to set up a station, like if we drive out to Oakland or if we drive out to Tillatoba or Scobie, and we're looking at our routes to see. This is not definite, but we want to see how close we can get to almost door to door to ensure that our students will receive a meal each day. So we are still in the talking stages for that, but we are just happy to announce that our bus drivers will still be able to benefit from the routes. And as you know, this budget is coming up for adoption. We really, really need the Board of Trustees to push this budget through to ensure that we can begin the spending for our students to receive a quality education. If you look further down this slide, you can see that there is Title I money, $235,000. You have Title II. We now have Title IV and V. We have special education, IDEA, which is $138,000. We also have preschool. We have a CTE budget. And these are monies that we need to readily have available to us so that we can begin better stabilizing the education for our students. If we fail to go ahead and adopt this budget, it is going to cause a problem, and it is going to be a hindrance for us to effectively provide our students a quality education as they so deserve. This is why this budget is ever so important. And here I do want to plug, and I'm going online to say this, and this presentation becomes public knowledge. It will be on Facebook. It will be on our website as well as YouTube. So we are very careful as to make sure that we are communicating accurate information. So initially, even we talked about in the special hearing about the availability of the CARES Act funding. And we were under the impression that the money would be available for our spending on the 15th of July. Since that time, and just like with everything else with this COVID-19, all plans are fluid. They can change at any moment. And the Mississippi Department of Education, they're not exempt from that. No one is exempt from that, because this is why it's stated, this is an unprecedented time. So since that time, we've been in talks of hearing about the State Department is now going to require that the district will front the CARES Act funding money that we were allocated, and then they will reimburse. Now, let me say clearly, because we have been trying to practice transparency, we don't have $236,000 just lying around to just go ahead and start the spending. We didn't have that luxury, which is why we were so elated to hear that the funding would be available. Now, we do have Chromebooks and devices ready to be disseminated next week, but there were other things that we need to purchase, such as hotspots, and we need to enhance our servers, and we would like our pre-K and our lower grades and our SPED department to get these touchscreen devices. And so in order for us to do that, we need to go ahead and be able to access this funding. And so what we've done on the next board meeting, please make sure that you chime in. We will have the TAN loan up for approval, which I talked about in a previous board meeting. Again, I have to plug the Excellence Group. When we all found out this information, they were invaluable in quickly pulling together and deciding how we could counterattack this, or we were going to find ourselves in a huge fixation, because we had already gone to virtual learning. We have been trying to assure our community and our parents that we will readily put equipment into the hands of our students that is high tech, and the hotspots to make sure that they can access the internet. And us not being able to get that CARES Act funding immediately would definitely be a hindrance for that. So we met together, and Dana was able to quickly, within a 30-minute period, rework the numbers on the tax anticipation note so that we could include that in the TAN loan. And this is another reason why we need to make sure this budget is pushed through on next month, and that the TAN loan is also pushed through, because failure to go ahead and approve these items is going to be a hindrance of us providing our students a quality education. So I do again want to thank the Excellence Group and Dana for quickly making a decision for us to safeguard the instruction and education of our students. I have met with the administrators overseeing the TAN loan, which comes out of our board attorney's office, Jim Keith, Adams, and Reese, and they have verified for me they are pushing through to get that resolution together so that we will be able to have that on our August 11th board meeting. So some of our staffing justifications, we're always looking for bus drivers. Once we are able to return to the hybrid and then on to traditional, you know that transportation is going to be a challenge for us as we try to comply to the CDC guidelines of social distancing. And so also we have, even though we do have a lot of challenges within the budget, and we are going to continue to be good stewards of the budget, but some things we have to plug into the budget because we have to safeguard our students and our staff. And so we did bring on an extra custodian to ensure that we are adhering to CDC guidelines of several times throughout the day. These high touch areas have to be wiped down and they have to be sanitized. And we're going to make sure that we are prepared for our students re-entering the building. This is another plug to why it was so invaluable to us to go virtual for the first 9 weeks. And if you have been paying attention to all other districts across the state, many other districts chose to do the same thing in wake of such high numbers every day. Jackson Public School, they're the largest district within our state, and they are 100% virtual at this time. Also paying close attention to if these numbers are going to flatten. We are hoping that they are, but whether or not they do will be part of our decision as to whether or not in October we can move on into hybrid. And during this time, I can assure you, we will be working to make sure that we have these guards for our students and that we are able to put as many safety precautions in as we can, that we are putting up the signs to remind our little ones to social distance. It's so hard to think that a little pre-K is going to be able to keep a mask on all day, or is going to be able to social distance after Katie hadn't seen Johnny for months, and we expect him to 6 feet distance. So with that said, this has been our presentation of our public hearing. We have gone over the 30-minute slot just by a little bit, but I do want to cover these last few slides before we turn it over for any questions that Dana will happily address for us. We want to make sure that you understand that the MAEP funding has not been fully funded at this time. No one in the state at this time knows the allocations that are going to be rendered. We do know that MAEP has not been fully funded. However, we are hoping to get to at least 87, 88%. We really just don't know, but that still leaves a huge 12 to 13% of underfunding. Some of our budget points that we just have to reiterate. I will be remiss if I did not mention. I would like to thank Dana for generating this budget for us. We have to remember that the students are top priority. Coffeeville School District, we faced so many financial challenges over the past several years, but we are still here and we're thankful. We plan to make every decision possible that will try to close this financial struggle that we are currently enduring, and we are going to prioritize and make great decisions that are based upon our students to ensure that we continue to be successful. And also, we just cannot end this hearing without stating that we are most proud of being able to demonstrate transparency, and we are able to each day implement ethical practices, and we are going to continue to move toward excellence. We're going to work to ensure that our students make it through this unprecedented time. It is, if you are unaware, it is very stressful. You know, it is something that we have never, ever experienced before since about, I think this, it says 100 years. And so here's where we are. So we are thanking you. We thank the Board of Trustees, but now we are asking that you take all of this information with you, look over it very, very carefully, and be prepared to come back the next month to approve our budget and approve our TAN loan, because failure to do that would greatly hinder the education of our students and moving forward and getting this technology into the hands of our students, as MDE will no longer front that funding. We will have to be reimbursed. So at this time, I would like to open the floor for questions. Please remember, if you are going to ask a question, you are going to need to identify yourself as to who you are. And Dana Fleming, who is a state auditor as well as a decade of experienced business manager, and she has successfully generated our budget, and she is here to patiently address any questions at this time. Okay, that ends our public hearing. At this time, Dana will be available to answer any questions at this time. Okay, I am going to assume that there are no questions at that time, at this time. Is that correct? Okay, well, we thank you. And President Jackson, we will turn it over to you now so that we will be able to adjourn the meeting and go directly. We invite everyone to shift gears and go into our regular board meeting that we are a little late for. And I do apologize, but it was very important that we try to share as much pertinent information to the community as we possibly could. So at this time, I turn it back over to President Roger Jackson.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, I'd like to have a motion for us to adjourn from our budget hearing. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is that Mr. Bland or Todd?
Todd.
Okay. Board Member Todd Hughes has made a motion that we adjourn. Can I have a second on that motion?
I'd make a second.
Okay, Mr. Larry Bland makes a second on that. Okay, Todd, how do you vote to adjourn?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Larry Bland, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Charlotte Daly, how do you vote?
Yay.
Was Ms. Polk able to join us tonight? Okay, I will take it that she was unable to join us. And so with the ones we have on call, it is unanimous. We are adjourned from our budget hearing, and we'll go right now on over to our board meeting.